Hi. Look, I'm shaking. So, just to clarify, this shaking is not because I'm nervous or it's cold outside. It's because I suffer from serious anxiety issues. Even the happiest thought or the saddest thought can make me anxious from 0 to 1 second. So, this was not my opening line. This was not my opening line. So, before starting my journey, let us do a quick poll. Raise of hands if you're a Mariah Carey fan. Mariah Carey fan. I was afraid of the result that most of you won't know her. And if you have seen the sitcom Schitt's Creek, yes. So the reason I asked you this was because YouTube in the year 2020 came up with a collaboration with different influencers, singers, actors, and they paid tribute to the class and the teachers of 2020, mostly because they went through the pandemic online. And they came up, Schitt's Creek and Mariah Carey came up together and sang a song. And the lyrics went something like this. You know, when your hope is gone, look inside you and be strong, and then you'll finally see the truth that a hero lies in you. The video came, the video went away, but this song is still in my head, lives rent-free in my head. So my story starts in 2020, early 2020, when I decided to give up a very, very stable job for pursuing higher studies. I was a very confident girl, working for 3 years, and I knew my shit. I knew everything what my job required. It gave me confidence, it gave me financial security, social security, but with that, it gave me insecurities. Because the people I was working with were super cool, were there, out there, super extrovert, and in the past 3 years of my working, I was always found in a corner table with my earphones on, just making plans for social media because I was a classified introvert. You can just tell someone that Shaurya is an introvert and they'll know what introvert means. So yes, everything was going according to the plan, and I thought that everything on Excel sheet is going to make sense. So I started charting down an Excel sheet where I put up my finances, where I put up all my investments, what am I going to do for the next 2 years, how am I going to do my higher studies. Everything was on point, on plan, and nothing can go wrong. But as for most of you, 2020 was not a tasteful year for me as well. In the very beginning of 2020, I lost the light of my life, my grandfather. It was very sad for my family because he was the pillar of my family, but it hit it the most to my grandmother, and she was succumbed to dementia in a year. So that news was followed by my closest friend getting cancer. If that was not enough, my personal life was in a turmoil. I was coming out of a relationship of over 2 years. I romanticized my life with a man. I think most of us have. But it fell through. All that gut-wrenching pain started manifesting physically. I started gaining weight. I started getting anxiety. But I had one security, and that was my job. I used to wake up every day. I submerged myself into studies. I submerged myself into work, and I had something to look forward to. But life is not that nice, right? Life is not that nice. So the day came when I had to give up my job to actually go for higher studies because I became redundant in the system. So then what happened was I gave my resignation in the midst of a friend suffering from cancer, loss of my entire generation of my family. In 1.5 years, there were 6 people whom I lost. And of course, the personal COVID hazards which was happening around me. I still decided to go because, of course, I had a plan. I had an Excel sheet, and that's what life is supposed to be. Your Excel sheet will give you all the answers. And I thought, yes, I have all the plans sorted. And then what happened was for the next few months from October, I studied hard. Then came the decision day. I applied to just one business school thinking that, okay, I am going to get it. And on 7th of January at 7 p.m., I read an email which read, Dear Shaurya, after careful consideration, we are not moving ahead with your application. Life stopped. Now I had no plan, I had no Excel sheet, I had no security, I had nothing. You might think why this small rejection has hit you so bad and why should I listen to your story? Because that's one rejection brought back all the past memories I promised myself to never talk about. Each passing day, I started remembering something horrible about my past life. And it started with remembering an inappropriate touch from a friend. Then it started to bring me back the memory that I was traveling in a metro and a girl chased me because it was easy to mob me because it was night, it was dark, and it's quite easy in Delhi. All these thoughts and all these experiences started turning into a trauma I really, really, really wanted to get out of her. But what to do now? I don't have a job. I don't have social security. And I'm a person who just can't talk to your family and tell them. In India, mostly, most of you can't talk to your family. It's not that open. So, what I did, I decided that, oh, I should get a job. That's what I did last time when I masked my feelings. So, I got a job. I started applying. The same Excel sheet process started again. This is the company I want to, this is the role I want, this is the salary I want. And I got it. I was leading a team of 8 people and expanded my team in a span of 1 month to 14. But I was a woman, and that was the worst thing in that company. To prove my worth, I had to work extra hours. I had to explain everything. I was questioned everywhere, called out for how I look, how I dress up, how dare I speak in front of men in the room. It started building up. I started working 16 hours to prove my worth, that I am as good as men in your team. And to an extent that I proved, I gave them results in 28 days, which their generations wouldn't have seen. But still, it got worse. It got worse and worse and worse every day. I started getting calls 6 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m. in the morning, and none of them were work-related. They were to tell me to set my priorities, otherwise the consequences will not be good. Probably telling me that we'll fire you and get a man instead of you. I couldn't take the pressure because then I got diagnosed with insomnia. I remember not sleeping for a month, sleeping half an hour, getting up, sleeping. And after 3 months, I decided to give up on the job. It was just not worth it. Luckily, I got a job which gave me the privilege of work from home in June. I went home, I was anxious, I was palpitating, my heartbeat was 120 per minute, and that was lowest I could count in few days. And then things started slowly getting onto track. Until July, when one day my father knocked on my door and said, Beta, I got diagnosed with cancer again. It was the second time in the last 3 years he got diagnosed with cancer. But this was exceptional. It was a cancer which was non-reversible, and it was 1 in a million case. The cancer was behind his eye and in front of his brain, so that made the case more complicated. He was asked to give up on his right eye in order to survive and in order to have a life of his own. As if that was not enough, one day I got a call from his doctor, a personal call. He did not want to talk to my father. And he said that, Shaurya, so I have a news for you. Your father, we have found some nodes in his chest. So the probable thing is that tuberculosis node, that's all right. But his cancer is so aggressive that it might have turned into a cancer. And if yes, then it's the last stage. There's no hope after that. We were shattered, we were heartbroken, and I think this is the first time my father will know about the call. So yes, that was the time my whole family broke down, leaving the loss of their pillars, an entire generation, COVID, and everything. And on top of that, my father getting a turbulent life cancer on his eye. What to do next? We were out of questions, we were out of breath, and I started locking myself into the room with lights off, fan off, and started crying. I cut myself off from family, my friends. I jeopardized at least 7 relationships, and not the romanticized relationship, but with my best friends, with my family, and I couldn't do anything. But there was a part of me who wanted to just break the barrier and come out of it, because if I wouldn't have been all right, I wouldn't have made my father all right. So then I called up a friend from organization, the first organization I used to work in, and she suggested me to take help, therapy, as we all know. So back in my country, therapy is more of a taboo. Like, people are not very accepting of therapy. They'll tell you, no, you don't need it. You actually don't need it. It's all in your head. And actually, it's all in your head, but you need someone to push it out. After a month of reluctance and pre-therapy from my friend, free of cost, I went into therapy. And my therapist gave me just 2 jobs, and I'm sure it is going to help you all as well. So the first job was to say anything and everything that comes into your mind without any filter. And the second, my favorite, I'm sure you guys can guess, an Excel sheet. I was asked to make an Excel sheet where the first column read your thoughts, that what is the thought that triggered your emotions. The second column read what is your reaction towards those emotions? How are you reacting towards those emotions? The third demanded for you to identify those emotions. That what is it? It is sad, angry, hungry, or something which is just you don't know about. And the fourth was cognitive distortion. Very fancy word, I didn't know what it is. But the moment I came to know what it is, it made sense. It means the faulty description you have curated in your mind of every situation. It can be polarizing of your thought. It can be filtering your thought to either super positive things or super negative things, or it can be overgeneralization of your thought, or the world revolves around you, or even as low as blaming everything that is going in your life on someone else. I started doing that and I thought, okay, it's an Excel sheet. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I kept chanting it to myself that I'll do it, but it took me 2 months to get my first emotion right. Because often I used to target my emotion as anxiety, palpitation, increased heart rate, but it wasn't it. Your emotions are sadness, unjoyfulness, happy, joyful, abandoned, and there are at least 3,400 emotions we are unaware of. But constant practice made me go through it. What my therapist did the best for me was telling me that I am the reason of my emotion. What she did was she took up emotions and all my interactions and reactions, she culminated it into a story. And she just asked me to swap the second main character, who was sometimes my friend, sometimes my parents, sometimes just my boss, and she swapped that character with herself. And what it did was, in the matter of seconds, it brought me from abandoned to sad. Because it was not just the person who was affecting me, it was the relation between me and the person who was affecting. So it was in my mind that, okay, if my best friend is not talking to me, I'm abandoned. But if a person who's not my best friend is not talking to me, I'm sad. You must think, how does it help? It actually tricks your brain. It tricks your brain into thinking something which you will never think in a normal scenario. You will give up on it, you'll just be sad in a room, seek for validation, and I did it for 1.5 years. I used to call my peers and tell them, oh, do you think I'm wrong? And they were just like, no, you're not wrong, you're absolutely correct. And it gives you a pump, but it's not good for your health. In the long run, of course. The therapy helped, and I started reconciling with my friends. I started calling them, and it was a very, very difficult thing to do. And I started talking to them about how I actually felt in a situation. They reciprocated my luck, they reciprocated, and they told me how they felt. And the key to reconcile again was to listen. To listen to them, how they were feeling in a certain situation, and acknowledge it. Just acknowledging is the first part of getting out of that emotional turbulence. It was all fine again. And this time, since I had a very professional help, I knew that I'm not going to fall into something else. And I did not, touch wood. So to end my story here, there's something I would want you to know. The story of other 3 people I shared. The friend with cancer, the person who always sits in a corner, and my father. My father had to lose his eyes like 10 days back, but he was recently announced as the vice chairman of Jharkhand Academic Council, a study group, a huge study group. My friend who won the race against cancer, she won it, and she's right now working with her huge MNC and living her best life. And the girl who was always scared, introverted, has finally taken the center stage, is studying in ESCP Business School with the best peers who are here to support me, of course. And yes, there is a overgeneralization of what you think as emotional and what you think as strong. It doesn't matter if you're emotional, you can be strong every fucking day of your life. I'm so sorry that I'm using that word. But yes, that's how my emotion came out right now. We have been grown up in a society where we can definitely cry with complete abandon, but we cannot cry with abject innocence. You'll be judged if you cry on a road. If I start crying right now, everyone is going to judge me. Be it you know me, you don't know me, but you will judge me. So what to do? How to break this now? Be shamefully emotional. Cry, laugh, be angry at your friends, be angry at your parents, but know your line. Know how to take your step back, know how to relax, calm your mind, and let the negative thoughts go. because that's the secret of a happy, hopeful life. If not for my mother's hope that I will come out of anxiety, my father will come out of cancer and she will have a family, I wouldn't have been here. My father wouldn't have survived. So that one tiny thread which should bind you and which should bind your peers, your friends, and everyone is hope. Just cling on to it. Be a clingy person to hope. Never leave it. And that's the secret how you're going to come out of all the emotional turmoils. Be kind, be humble. And I think I learned it the hard way, a very, very hard way after all these emotional, physical turmoil, the harassment, the chasing, and everything. It changed my life. It changed my perspective of how I look to a boy, to a girl, and how I look to someone I don't know. I stopped judging people, and yeah, that's something I'm very proud of. But yes, it changes your life when you start being kind, you start being emotional, you start embracing the vulnerabilities which you come with. And be kind, because often it is the most underrated skill. It's the most underrated skill to be kind and be emotional. I'm Shaurya Singh. Thank you for going through my journey with me. Jai Hind. Namaste.